Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now you may have guessed, your detective skills might have given you an idea that I'm going to talk about hats today, because hats have always been quite a big part of my life. I think hats represent something within a man's sartorial style which has gone overlooked for many years. Because, you know, if you look at an image of a group of men going back, say, 50 years ago, you will see that everybody was wearing some form of hat. If you were to look at a similar group in the modern era, the hat is no longer present. And there's a whole number of reasons for that. We've explored that in the past. A lot of it is to do with the mass ownership of cars, motor vehicles, because a hat really is a bit large an item to wear in a car, so people stop carrying them and wearing them. It's the proliferation of product which men wear in their hair these days. Men like to style their hair, and if you style your hair, you won't want to put a hat on it because it messes up that coiffure that you have created on top of your head. Now, back in my day, I was born in 1970. I remember hats being much more important and ever present within men, because, you know, your hat often denoted your profession. If you were a businessman and you worked in the city, you would wear a bowler hat. If you were a bus conductor, you would wear a certain type of hat. Even milkmen and post men and women used to wear hats which you would recognize as something synonymous with their profession. That's all kind of died by the wayside now. Hats within this last generation have gone into abeyance, which is tragic. I think those of us who are sartorially inclined are keeping the tradition going, but it's definitely falling away as men are seemingly seduced into the ever-presence of the baseball cap, which is killing off many of the other hats which we wear. Now, I've got a collection of hats here, my collection of hats, and I'm going to talk you through my collection of hats today, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the stories of each type of hat and even each hat which means something to me. So sit down, get yourself a cup of tea and come on a journey through my headwear collection today. Okay, I'm going to start with the oldest hat in my collection, and it's not one which I wear anymore, but it's one which represents a decade of my life. And it is this hat here. This is my old beret from my 10 years of service within the Royal Air Force. This is the last beret which I had when I was serving. Of course, I went through quite a few over those years, but this hat means quite a lot to me, even though I'll never wear it again, really. I mean, I might just model it for you here today, but the RAF beret, much like most military berets of their era, they have quite a lot of significance to the wearer, particularly in the British Army, where your beret and particularly the badge means it's your tribal affiliation. It's the group of people you're associated to. So for me, my beret meant that I was a part of something bigger than myself. Being in the military, you're amongst people striving towards a common purpose, and they're people who share the same sensibilities, the same values as you. You've all taken the same oath of allegiance to the crown. You're serving your country. And the beret means something, certainly meant something for me. So that's why my RAF beret sits in my bedside table. I don't really wear it, never will again, but it means something to me. A decade of my life from the age of 17, in which I was part of a group of people, a body, an entity, an organization, which was a bit more than just myself. Now, after the years I spent in the military, I didn't really wear much in the way of hats. Of course, I owned and still own the odd baseball cap, but I didn't really wear any sort of hat that you'd identify as being a hat worth talking about today. Until, in my 30s, I started to get interested in nature in a big way. At the time, I was living in Wales before I got married, and I lived right on the borders of the Brecon Beacons National Park in Wales, which is quite a rugged, mountainous national park. And for many, many years, I spent my weekends ranging up in those mountains, climbing the mountains, wild camping, just spending the day up there. And particularly in the summertime, I needed a hat which would be protective rather than cool. And that's when I discovered the Tilley hat. Now, Tilley hats have got a bit of a reputation. They've been around for a good while. They were created by a Canadian gentleman called Alex Tilley. He was a yachtsman, if I remember correctly, and he was seeking a hat which would protect him from the sun and would tick quite a few boxes which he needed as somebody who spent a lot of time on the water. And they became very widely adopted by people like myself who spent a lot of time in nature, and we wanted a hat which would protect us from the sun, protect us from the rain. And it was a good all-rounder. Now, this was the first Tilley hat I ever bought. They're made of duck cotton, which is like a refined version of canvas, really. It's really tough and rugged. It's hardy as hell. They've got solid brass fittings, and it has this ingenious strap arrangement where you could put the sort of strap on the back of your head, the strap under your chin, and even if you're in a tornado at sea on a boat or on the top of a mountain, your hat isn't going to be blown off your head. It's a really rugged bit of kit. And also inside the hat there's a hidden pocket so you can hide some money. It's got I believe a polyurethane crown on the top, so inside that pocket there's this polyurethane insert, which means the hat floats if it falls into water. Important if you're a bit of a yachtsman. So a good all-rounder. One of the famous things they always promoted this hat as being owned by a zookeeper who had it on his head. One of the elephants in the zoo grabbed it off his head with its trunk, stuffed it in its mouth, and it ate it. And a few days later, the zookeeper retrieved his fully intact Tilley hat from the elephant's bowel movement, washed it off, and it was perfect, and he continued to wear it. So this was my first Tilley hat. They're quite robust. They're not cheap. I think they cost about £70 now, but when I bought my first one, they were about 40. And you can snap them up on the sides. You know, they've got little clips on them that allow them to be worn like that. After that first one, I bought a second one. Now this more sort of military looking one. This exactly the same. It's a T3 model, which is their standard sort of Tilley hat. This hat came on me to expeditions up the rainforest in Thailand. I was, multiple days expeditions in the rainforest. This one came with me on an expedition to New Zealand, and I just kept acquiring them. But what I used to do, I used to buy them from eBay, and I used to pay no more than sort of £15 after that initial one. This is a hemp one, and again, this is one which I still wear quite often these days. They're kind of shapeless, they're not very attractive, but they keep the sun off your neck and out of your eyes, and they also protect you from the rain, and they do have a certain style to them as well. So that's the Tilley hat. This was a hat which I wore predominantly outdoors for about, well, right up to the modern day, from my early 30s. So the next hat I'm going to talk about is a hat which is very much part of my wardrobe today, and it's this one over here. It's the Trilby hat. The Trilby is a hat which, in my mind, when I think of a smart, intentionally well-dressed man, maybe of a bygone era, the Trilby's the hat I think of. Probably because my hat-wearing role model was my dad. Now, my father is 92, and to this day, when he goes out in the winter, he wears his Trilby hat. He's got a Trilby hat, which, as he often reminds me, is older than me. He's owned it for, most of his adult life. And when I remember as a young man looking up to my dad as a kid, he was wearing that Trilby hat. So I've grown up thinking of the Trilby hat as being the hat of the smartly turned out, intentionally well-dressed man. And I think back to eras gone by. I think of James Bond, who wore a Trilby in the Sean Connery era. And the reason I like the Trilby is, whilst it is clearly a dress hat, it's stylish, it's elegant. It's got a brim which is a bit shorter than a fedora, which shares many of the characteristics of a Trilby with the same crown and the same shape. But the most obvious difference is the brim is shorter, which means it's much more practical for daily use. It's not too ostentatious. Whilst it's clearly a dress hat, it's not overtly eccentric in any way, which kind of the fedora is heading into that category today. So the Trilby's a hat which you can still get away with without looking a bit strange in public these days. Now, the hat I'm wearing is a felt Trilby. Nothing fancy, it's unlined, it was inexpensive, but this hat I've had enormous service out of. I wear it regularly in the winter. I've even worn it on my various expeditions expeditions into Europe in the colder time of year, where the felt construction keeps the head nice and insulated and warm, yet it's stylish enough to wear with a suit, to wear with an overcoat, nice black colour, kind of neutral when it comes to clothing style. It really has served me well, and it harkens back to my father and his Trilby, you know, as he still wears it today. I love my Trilby, and it's a hat which I'm going to continue wearing. Probably the most of all of these hats, other than one type here on the table. But the Trilby for me, if you want one hat to be stylish and cool, it's probably the way to go. Now, when it comes to the summer months, you know, a felt hat is not going to cut the mustard. You need something a little bit more practical, and for me, I opt for a fedora in a summer style. Now, I say summer style, it's all about the construction of the hat. Now, in this instance, this is made of paper, which has become a very common summer hat style. And it's a simple fedora, yet constructed of paper, unlined. It keeps it cool and light, keeps the sun out of my eyes, and it really performs its function rather well. Now, the beauty of paper hats is it's inexpensive, all right? These hats cost around £10, and if they last 1 or 2 seasons, I'm more than happy. I think it's a really nice compromise, you know, opposed to some of the other more expensive summer hats. So for me, in the summer, a fedora style is exactly what you want, because that wide brim protects you from the sun and also looks rather stylish as well. And they don't last very long because, you know, your perspiration will stain them. But 1 or 2 seasons for £10, who can argue with that? Now, perhaps the hat which I wear the most, more so than even my Trilby, is my flat cap collection. I don't have that many, 3 or 4, but they actually serve a fantastic purpose because, you know, they're just so much more practical than the baseball cap. Now, if I'm in my sort of my outdoor environment, I opt for this tweed flat cap. Flat caps go back, you know, many hundreds of years, worn by the masses as a practical, simple way of keeping your head covered, keeping your head warm. They have certain practical advantages as well. Easily folded and placed in the pocket when you're not wearing it means you can carry it around. A little bit more awkward to carry around something like a Trilby, but something like this slips into the pocket and it's there when you need it. And flop, pop it onto the head, practical, easy to wear, keeps the head insulated and warm. This is my sort of outdoorsy one when I'm wearing a barber jacket or so on. If it's raining, I've even got one made of barber material. This is a barber hat, but it's made of waxed cotton, perfect for the rainy days. Again, folded in the pocket, you don't even know it's there until you need it. If you want to go a bit more stylish, I've even got a Kangol hat here, British manufacturer of hats, but Kangol, this is a woolen flat cap, and on the days where I'm wearing maybe an overcoat and I don't want to, you know, carry around a dress hat, or the situation I'm going into is a little too casual for a dress hat, I will then default to my simple black Kangol flat cap. It's stealth cool. That's the way to look at it. Flat cap, always a winner. So much better than a baseball cap. Now, a very close relative of the flat cap is, of course, the newsboy cap. And this is the latest addition to my hat collection. And there's a story behind it. I was on holiday visiting a friend of mine recently in Philadelphia, in America. A chap called Timothy Big Pretty Crow, who's got his own YouTube channel for extra large men. And he was going to take me into the city to show me his favorite hat shop. So I thought, oh yeah, it'd be great, love to see that. It was Father's Day of this year, 2023. We walked into the shop and there were some ladies inside the shop who were carrying out a promotion for their, I don't know, they had a home care company or something. And part of that is every man who was a father who walked into the hat shop, they were going to buy them a hat of their choice. What an opportunity. I'm a father, I was there at the right time. So I chose this simple newsboy cap for my hat collection because up to this point, I've only really had flat caps in this style. So I thought, let's go for a newsboy cap, something a little different. And I picked this sort of blue suede or navy blue suede because I knew it would blend in well with many of the other hats in my collection. So every time I wear this hat, and I haven't worn it in anger yet because I bought it in sort of June. In the winter time when I wear this hat, I would think to myself, this is my Philadelphia Father's Day hat. All right then, it's time for the big guns. Let's go with the most stylish dress hats. And here I have the bowler hat. Of course, is it not the most enigmatic hat in the world for a gentleman? And it conjures up images of style, of class, and other things as well. The hat was designed by the Bowler brothers for Lock & Co. quite a long time ago now. They were designed for a British nobleman who wanted a very hard-wearing yet smart and stylish hat for his gamekeepers, who were forever damaging their top hats when they were out in the woods, because, you know, the limbs of trees would knock them off, and he wanted something which was tougher and more robust. And the hat designed to meet that need was the bowler hat. Now, the bowler hat has been worn by the likes of Winston Churchill, many American presidents, and, you know, innumerable smart and stylish men over the years. In this country, in the UK, the wearing of a bowler hat is normally associated with men who work in the upper reaches of the professions, of bank managers, people who work in the finance industry, in the City of London, businessmen, and so on. The reason I own this bowler hat is because a couple of years ago, I was encouraged by a very close friend of mine, Timothy Big Pretty Crow, the man who's responsible for my newsboy cap here. He said to me, you should wear a bowler hat. And he challenged me to wear a bowler hat for 2 weeks and to give my determination on whether I liked that experience or not at the end. So I bought myself this bowler hat for under £20 from eBay, inexpensive, and I wore it for 2 weeks, probably about 3 years ago now. And you know what? Initially, I was intimidated by the formal style of the bowler. However, as time passed, I grew to appreciate its qualities, its robustness, its toughness. It's relatively compact on the head. It's relatively light on the head, yet it's rather tough. You can throw it around a little. You don't have to worry about it. This is why it was the most popular hat for cowboys way back in the frontier days of the United States. This is the hat worn by, you know, people who were actually working out on the range, because it kept the sun out of your eyes, it had a low profile, wouldn't get blown off your head if you were riding quickly on a horse. This was the hat of choice. I came to love it. Now, I have to admit, it's a difficult hat to wear on a daily basis in the modern era, in a sort of provincial area such as I live. Because, you know, if I walked around my town of 90,000 people wearing this hat today, I'd be the only man I saw all day wearing a bowler. However, if you can overcome that feeling of self-consciousness, you've got a hell of a hat to wear. It's a wonderful hat, comfortable and, you know, practically so cool. Nobody's going to miss you wearing a bowler hat. And for the price point, I mean, it's a brand new hat. Admittedly, it's been made in China, but, you know, a brand new lined hat, 100% wool. I think, you know, they still cut a dash in the world today. And I can only thank my good friend Tim Crow for inviting me to take part in the bowler hat challenge, which kind of changed my life when it comes to men's dress hats. Now, where do you go from a bowler hat? Well, there's one step up to make, isn't there? It's the Homburg hat. It's the big hitter. It's the boss hat in the world today. Nobody wears, you know, your more formal hats like top hats and the like, but the Homburg is just about the most formal hat you will see most men, even those who are stylish, wearing in the world today. And again, I have to thank Tim Crow, who's clearly the hat pope, for encouraging me into the Homburg, because he sent me this hat. Now, this is a pimped out Homburg, admittedly. It's one he gets away with. He sent me this hat as a sort of encouragement to be a hat wearing gentleman. And it came through in the post. It was quite a surprise. I put it on and I thought, wow, this is just like wearing the bowler, but a level up in stylishness. Now this particular one, as you can see, has got, you know, a white ribbon around the middle and white piping or edging around the hat itself. But the bowler, it's got quite a history. It comes from the Bad Homburg area of Germany, hence the name Homburg hat. And it was in that part of the world favoured as a hunting hat. Now the reason why we in the West wear the Homburg hat, we can thank good old King Edward VII, one of the monarchs of this country. Of course, British monarchs all have a sort of German origin story behind them. And King Edward VII was in Germany doing some hunting, and he started wearing the Homburg as his hat of choice. He fell in love with it. So when he came back to the UK, he chose it as his sort of daily wearer hat over the other options which were available, and most of the images of King Edward VII will find him wearing a Homburg hat. Now whilst this one may be a little bit too pimped out for ordinary use, and I have to admit I struggle to find situations where I can wear this one, I did go ahead, having actually really liked the Homburg, and I did purchase a little bit more of a conservative Homburg. Again, I went to eBay, didn't cost a lot of money. I think it was like £15 or something. And same sort of hat, almost entirely. The only difference is it's not got the white, you know, accessories on it. Now this is a hat which you can wear, maybe in place of the bowler, maybe in place of the Trilby, depending on your circumstances. These hats, the Homburg, have been worn famously by Winston Churchill, by American presidents, typically at their inaugurations. So, you know, the Homburg has got a storied history in the world of men's hats. It's just a matter of having the confidence to wear it in the world today, because it's a big hat. You know, you really do feel like you've got the boss hat on your head. It adds 3 to 4 inches to your height. It gives you a more commanding presence when you're amongst other people. You will be immediately identified within a crowd, because in this day and age, you're going to be the only person wearing a hat of that nature. So there's a lot to be said for the old classic dress hats, particularly because you don't have to spend a pile of money in this day and age. They are available in vast numbers on eBay, classic vintage models which are being sold off for virtually nothing, or modern reproductions made in China mostly, but they are made of, you know, quite serviceable modern materials, but they don't cost a lot of money. So you don't have to invest a lot if you're thinking about getting into a hat like this. So that's largely my hat collection. Now, of course, there are some which are not here today. You know, I do wear other hats, baseball caps and things like that. But and I have worn weird hats and wonderful hats. I've worn stovepipe hats. I've worn top hats. I've worn a fez. But, you know, these are novelties. They're not hats which I would wear on a daily basis. The hats here are the hats which I own that I practically do wear, other than my beret, which is kind of a historic, you know, honourable mention here. But all of these other hats are in my collection and worn on a daily basis. And I don't wear a baseball cap at all today. If I'm in a sort of casual situation, I've got the flat caps, or I've got the newsboy cap now, which will fulfill that same, you know, place in my sartorial world. If you're a baseball cap wearer, why not try something different? Stand out from the crowd. Be smart, be special. Don't follow the herd. So there we go. I hope you've enjoyed my hat collection today. If you have, do me the honour of giving this video a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos like this, click the old subscribe button. If you'd like to leave me a comment, you can either leave it in the comment section below or drop me an email, or ask me a question, whatever you'd like, put it in an email to me and I'd be delighted to try and answer it for you. If you'd like to support the channel and help with the making of this content, you can either buy me a coffee or become a patron. And I make additional videos for my patrons every week, and you'll find out how to become a part of all that in the show notes below. So, until the next time, I'm going to pick my favourite hat now from the table to say goodbye. It's going to be the bowler. Can there be a better hat for a man than the good old classic bowler hat? It is style. That's why I chose it as the emblem which you see on my YouTube channel. So, until the next time, take care, and I will see you again very soon.